said he took Timmy there. And Kelly says, Eric said the trust money is in his possession and he told the state about it. State will take it toward expenses for RL and T. Ferdinand says, David, right? Anthony says, and I'm sure a lot of folks did call also. Kitty says, he did, Anthony. Ellie says, I think Patrick's page with the pinned comment on every past post shows who is in it for the money. Everyone's saying, let me in. David, I wondered the same thing, said Lighthouse Girl. Party in the chat, says Anthony 21. Let's see. Katie says the state knew of the living conditions of the Whittakers. And David says, anytime state gets involved, can't ever get rid of them poking around. Susie says, Bad Betty, please come back. Harley Kitten says, called APS. Should have been done years ago. The local government has been watching the videos. They stepped in, but should have done it years ago. Funky, are you sending me the fat shot ads again, says Kathy. Ellie says, pin comment advertising that you can pay for him to make you a special video. Oh.
A videogram.
Ooh. Fernand says, Katie, why did it take so long to take action? Katie says, Patrick and Eric should have protected this family better. The locals are very upset with him. Annette says, Funky, we never heard the surprise. Kelly says, David, I agree, but in this case, it might be the right thing to do for them to get services they need. Kitty says, Eric went in blind. Once he found out the real deal, he bailed. Katie, I'm thinking it's not uncommon poor living conditions in that area. Like and subscribe, says Kathy. Anthony says, no, I'm new and you can't trust just anything said online. What I'm saying, people have been posting about Patrick's background since the beginning and they deleted the comments. What do you think about that? So I can take a break for a minute.
You know what? I'm going to let Quiet take that one.
Okay. They were saying that people deleted the comments that they had made about Eric's background. And was that the statement?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe they just got afraid that they shouldn't have put that out there. Or maybe they did. Maybe they were just running their mouths. I don't know.
Okay.
Why people delete stuff. Maybe they did it and they thought better about it. But there's way too many people saying things for there not to be some fire behind that.
Harley Kitten says Eric has been making thousands in super chats. He's using the family. Then when Patrick kicked him to the curb, he called APS. Eric is a major scammer. Kitty Lover says, Betty, where are you?
Mm-hmm.
Diane Frank, Joe Don, says, Harley, aren't you Patrick's daughter? And Kitty Lover says, Harley, he sure is. Is that true there? Quiet?
It may be. I think he does have a daughter named Haley or Harley. And if you're here, come up on the panel. We would love to hear what you have to say. Um, we're here to all opinions are respected. Please come up. We would cordially invite you to.
Okay. Jerry D. It was because of the Poe being dropped, PO, that Betty told the courts that BJ had beat Ray and hit Timmy, and so had BJ's boyfriends. You can hear it being talked about in the ring camera video of them. Ellie says, right, Annette? That's the reason I'm here. Funky promise, dance, and surprise. Anthony 421 says, curious to the amount donated just tonight alone. What do you mean? To here or with their channel? Anthony, I don't know what you're talking about. Jerry D says, taking Timmy. Brooklyn says, Kitty, he didn't go in blind. He had full intentions on making a killing and money, we all know. David says, sadly, splitting them up could hurt them more emotionally and impact their health even worse. Walking by Faith says, I think Eric and Patrick should have known that if they were going to get the law involved, they were going to see the living conditions and do something about it. Now they are broken up. Brooklyn says, Anthony, in 2 months, with all the funds coming in, they made $200K. What do you think? Should we stop or go on? Okay.
I just want to add one thing right here, okay? Um, I just thought about it. During when Eric was on his live, he did he told something that I don't think has been brought out in light yet. He said that Patrick was approached by two uh, executives or business owners, wealthy people
Mm-hmm.
who had been kind of following this story, and that they wanted to build and pay for the Whittaker's house. That they would take the whole expense of it, and they would pay for it. And Eric found out about it.
Uh-huh.
And what had happened was Patrick, they wanted to know about the trust, they wanted to know how they could, of course they're businessmen and they're going to want to know, what kind of financial systems are set up, where their money's going to go. And Eric said, no, there's no point to get, I mean, Patrick said there's no point to get Eric involved. He's just going to be trouble with it. He's just going to, put roadblocks up for us. He said, just send the money to me. And evidently that did not pan out well with the investors or the people who wanted to pay for their house. And it didn't happen. Now, that's Eric's story. I don't know, but that was surprising to me.
Also was found out Patrick was using FaceTime or some app to make money off. I am honestly glad APS stepped in because Lorraine, Timmy, and Ray need to live humanely and away from the manipulation. It's enough, says Kristen. Um, Harley says, look, giving the family a house is a temporary fix. They live like this for years. They would have trashed the new house in 6 months or less. Brooklyn says, yep, Kitty, it was probably in their plans. I knew Eric and Pat were bad for him beginning when they blocked me for asking about transparency on my donations. Anthony says, it's sad, but you can bet wherever the three are, they cleaned and cloth fed and warm. D says, anyone old enough to remember in the 70s that group was found in the Amazon and everyone got upset when authorities went in to civilize them? And that's what this situation reminds me of. Yeah, the problem with that group in the 70s in the Amazon is that they brought in all the sicknesses that the people from the outside had to the inside, and half those people ended up dying
I remember that.
because
Yep.
they didn't have any immunities to anything that the outside people did. That's why there's a group that's still in the Amazon that they don't touch. because they learned from that mistake. Um, Katie says, but the state had no choice, you know? Like Eric and Patrick broadcasted everything about the Whittakers. The family isn't even competent to make any decisions. Kitty says, I'm saying if I'm coming from another state to work with someone to help family, I'd have done my research on said partner. And the first time I saw Miss Deeds, that would have been it. Raven Graham knew. I live 15 minutes from the Whittakers, and they should have been left alone off social media. As a local, I'm highly upset because they live fine without being put on social media for years. And now look at it. Something to be said. Tony said, "In investors want to get involved, they're wanting that land." Yeah, I kind of think that might be something. Mitch says that is so sad. Maybe those investors would pay for a group home nonprofit for Betty, Lorraine, Ray, and Timmy.
Um, I used the term investor, and maybe I shouldn't have. I it Eric said that it was two wealthy businessmen, like executives from
Mhm.
some probably. He didn't say the name of the company, but it may be a fairly well-known company.
Well,
So
normally when
investors,
people like that go in, they have an ulterior motive, believe me.
Developers. Would that be
What?
a better word? Developers?
Yeah, developers. Land
right?
developers.
Yeah.
Yeah. He
Anthony
said,
said, oh, go on. Go on.
he said two wealthy businessmen and executives. So, you know, it, I used the term investors just for that lack of a better word, which was probably not the best word for me to have used. So I do not know if they were, it, just like the Whittakers, liked what they were doing and wanted to step in, and they have a lot of money and they wanted to pay for the house. That's what it sounded like. But
Right.
they could have had ulterior motives. I don't know.
Right. Anthony 421. I've never been married, but no way in hell is someone leaving their wife and family hours away, weeks at a time, to help another family unless monetary gain.
Can I jump in and say something?
Sure.
I know a lot of people that wear uniforms for places like the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, and the Marines that leave their family for months.
Right. That is
That
absolutely true.
that's it. Okay.
Uh, Jerry D says you can hear them talking about the PO being dropped in. Oh, I read that. Sorry. Um, anybody?
Another interesting bit of information too that was shared today. Betty was offered, even though that court date was missed and that PO, the protective order was dropped, she was offered three other times and asked, "Do you want this back?" And she said no. She was asked before they came out to pick up or remove Timmy, Ray, and uh, Lorraine. Prior to them leaving to come there, they called her and they asked her, "Are you sure you do not want us to put this protective order in?" And she still refused. And so they said they had no choice but to come get them.
Bob Apple says, I have an inkling something was off from day one when Eric was getting visibly frustrated with Patrick on live. Eric doing all the talking and Patrick just sitting there. Kristen said, would this even come to life if shit didn't hit the fan? Like Eric should have been trusted to his gut after Betty got that restraining order and Larry was disgruntled and he didn't feel right going to the Amish. Jerry says when they showed up to take Timmy, Ray, and Lorraine, they asked Betty 3 times before they stepped in to take them.
That's correct.
Brooklyn said, understand that Eric lies a lot. Remember, he wanted them to have a shower. Then a builder said he'll do it for free the next day until they get their house. What's Where's that building with the shower? Lies. Lily Lynn says Betty getting paid extra for caregiver. She knew Lorraine and Ray sitting in urine and poop. She made sure she was clean. She knew better. Um,
And that's a good point. She and Larry are not, their personal cleanliness is evidently, when you look at them, they're usually clean, but Ray was not. And I don't know how, I mean, Lorraine, I'm not sure. And I know that Timmy, he was not clean all the time. His clothes were not. So, yeah, she did kind of do better for herself, and she did allow that for them to be in that condition.
right,
So,
let's see. Um, Hang on. Regarding the business owners, they might have had some interest in owning the land. It's the names of the deceased parents. Probate never indicated to change ownership to living family.
last night in the chat, someone brought up an excellent point about that probate, why it may not have been pursued, and that land is still in the parents' names. Is that if those parents had any, like if they had to have care or they were on receiving services from Medicaid, which would have been paying for, like maybe they had to go to a care home or something, that once that land is if they die, then that land has to be sold, or the family has to come up and pay Medicaid
Right.
back. And
Right.
I know in my state it's the very same way. So
Uh-huh.
maybe they decided just to leave the land there because nobody had money to pay Medicaid back. And if they didn't probate the will, the land just stayed there.
Right.
That's
Probably.
probably what happened.
Probably. Anthony 421. I agree. Nobody's leaving home. But wait, who even knows he has a wife and kids? Can't believe anything these days. I can tell you that today. That's true. Um, Bob says, my guess is they were affiliated with some entertainment outlets and wanted to pitch the Whittakers as a reality TV show. It's possible. Raven says, I think Patrick and Eric are both dirty, and this is no offense. Anthony says, shit was weird when whoever it was in the underwater short or Timmy sitting on Patrick's lap. So many weird things taking him to Victoria's Secret.